Pulse sensor plus secondary equals bad spark plug. So as the title says, I'm going to use a pulse sensor to positively ID a cylinder. This car did have a P0306. I like to verify that. I've been lied to before. And we're going to use a secondary ignition capture to kind of rule out fuel and rule in ignition or a bad spark plug. This is a 2020 Pathfinder. It has a direct injected V6 and it's about 40-some thousand miles on this. And that spark plug is supposed to last 105,000, I believe. So we'll see if we can get to the bottom of this. Stay tuned. 2020 Nissan Pathfinder V6. There's my code, cylinder 6 misfire. Mode 6 shows a lot of misfires on 6 and some of the other cylinders. But if we just go watch the E-scan, you can see bank 2 changes a little more, which cylinder 6 would be bank 2. So here's my scope. I've got a pulse sensor in the exhaust, and every low pulse you see is a misfire. So I'm going to verify that this is number 6 and then try to find out why. It's already had a set of injectors put in it. It has about 40,000 miles on it. So here's my setup. My sync on number 4. First look sensor in the tailpipe. I'll wrap that around. I didn't want my sensor laying in the mud. So the ignition timing is about 20 degrees before top dead center. So I've laid the rulers a little to the right, and you can see the low pulse. Here's number 6. That's the firing order. I'm synced on number 4, and you can see right in here number 6's pulse is the low one. The valve probably opened somewhere in here, and with the latency in the exhaust, it pulses there. So there's with the overlay, or if you don't have an overlay, you can just go. If this is number 4's power, this is 4's exhaust. So you can get 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and then start over. So we have identified number 6 is the misfire. So now I need to figure out why. Okay, so this is the capture from the in the shop video. I'm going to go ahead and go over it again kind of quick. So every low pulse is a misfire. I've got other videos explaining that too, and we have a sync on number 4. So let's cut in here where we got a low pulse. I'm going to drag out 720 degrees of crankshaft rotation, and then I had mentioned about the ignition timing of being about 20 degrees before top dead center. So I'm going to move this cursor in about 20 degrees. See right there. And I'm going to move this one, so 720 plus 20 is to 740, and then I'll just move these over. It gives a little more accurate representation of where the piston is. So if you do not have an overlay, think about it like this. Number 4 is at top dead center here. It comes down on power and goes back up on exhaust. So this is 4's exhaust, and then you just follow the firing order. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and then we're back to 4. The rulers I have put at 120 degree intervals because a V6 fires every 120 degrees. And you can do that here. You could change it Like a 4-cylinder you would want there, and a V8, of course, you would want there. So we're a 4-cylinder, we're a 6-cylinder. And if you do happen to have an overlay, then you fill in the pertinent information. On this particular overlay, you put your firing order in, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You add your sync to 4. In this case, I'm going to hit go. Then I'm going to put ID chart. I'll minimize that. And then you just kind of line up. You line it up with the edges, and you can kind of change the size of this thing. And we come across here, and here's 4 or 6 is power / exhaust. The exhaust valve probably opened right in here. Now remember, this engine's moving, so the speed of the engine's changing, whereas the overlay is dynamic, or not dynamic, it's static. And then you've got latency in the exhaust, so by the time the exhaust valve opens at the head and you see the pulse at the tailpipe, you're going to get a little bit of delay, and we'll see that on another capture further into the video. But this firmly falls right in here, so I'm convinced now that number 6 is my problem, and I'm going to chase that. And I just wanted to go over this a little slower versus being in the shop with all the noise and background and people getting paged and me getting excited because it's a pretty cool diag. So back to the video. Secondary probe on number 6. You can kind of see the bad right before the misfire. It kind of shows the latency in the exhaust. These are the misfires, and then it shows it there. But this is all I've got going on. Yeah, the misfire shows on the tailpipe sensor here, but it misfired here. It's kind of neat. There's the ignition, there's the spike. So right in here it didn't miss, so we're going to have to analyze this and come up with a plan. So here's the capture from the video. I'm at a 200 millisecond per division, and it's about a 2-second screen. So in 2 seconds, this thing misfired once, maybe twice, definitely 3 times. You have to remember that because the known good, I put a 10-second screen up. So right in here, it didn't miss. So I'm going to look in here. We'll pick on that one. This is not scaled, and I was using an ignition wand. Kind of down and dirty. I use it for what it is. I don't rely on the numbers. I use it for comparison. So first off, this thing slopes downwards, and a lot of our stuff lately does. So I'm going to go with that seems to be normal. So I'm going to put a ruler there at kind of the break-off line. And kind of right through here, you can see the pulse sensor is pretty even. So I'm not getting any misfires, not like over here. So I'm just going to measure the bird time. I'm doing this just to compare because the car's acting normal in here. These things have a lot of burn time, 3.5 seconds, 3.5 milliseconds. And I notice it's kind of, kind of hairy right through here. You see that? It's not smooth. And I have a little small bit of ring. So these are all things that I'm looking at in the non-misfiring section. Let's look right in here. Same deal, a little bit, it's got some hash in it. It's got a little bit of ring at the tail. So a lot of the energy is getting used up. And let's look in here. Let's go ahead and pick on this dude. This here's the misfire as the pulse sensor showed it. So the ignition event right before it is where it misfired, and then it shows it here. first and foremost, all this energy that's left, you can see it almost looks like it double fired. I think this is energy left because I've seen this before in other captures with bad spark plugs. Very same signature. You figure that wand that I've got on top of that coil is just a giant antenna, so it's going to pick up lots of stuff. One thing that stood out to me other than that is if I zoom in, I noticed that the burn line on this thing is really smooth. It's got some hash at the end and an extreme amount of energy left in that coil. So remember how smooth that is. So let's just go back. Let's go back. Let's look at the one right before it. See how dirty the burn line is there? That's telling me that this thing is sparking in the cylinder. And the pulse sensor is telling me it's not missing. So let's look at that one. So there again, it's dirty. And I'm showing no misfire. And like I said, you can't base a diagnosis on just one spark. You got to kind of look at the bigger picture. So I'm good. And this engine's idling, by the way. I'm good. We've already determined that that was a miss because of that. And let's go over here and let's look at this one right on the edge of the screen. So it misfired here. See how clean that is? I did have a little bit of ring here, but just how clean that burn line is. So I'm thinking this thing is not sparking in the cylinder. I'm thinking it's sparking in a really safe place, like in the spark plug itself. I mean, you could kind of even see, it's just where this one was good. It has a downward slope. It had a little bit of ring, and this burn line is dirty. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's what kind of made me go the way I went. That one's relatively clean. It has a little hash at the end and a little bit of a ring to it, but we had no misfire. But here we did. Really clean and a lot of energy. So by process of elimination, all right, I'm convinced it's not a fuel issue. The burn line just doesn't support that theory. The coil has an enormous amount of energy. I mean, it is able to spark even on this bad spark. This coil is still able to sustain 2.51 milliseconds, and I'm convinced this is not sparked in the cylinder, but the amount of energy this coil has, I'm going to mark coil off the list. So I've eliminated fuel. I'm eliminating coil because of this and a visual inspection. I seen zero carbon tracking, no ghosting, nothing to think this thing is jumping fire outside of the boot. That and the fact this is about the 5th or 6th Denso iridium plug that I've seen go bad at very low mileage. And that spark line is just almost perfectly straight. Our fire line is perfectly straight with no hash in it. It just seems like to me it's firing within the porcelain of the spark plug. And I will say, when I took that thing out, I gave it a nice little look. I didn't see anything externally. But if you kind of held the threads between your thumb and index finger, and then you held the tip where it touches the coil, and you kind of flexed it, you could feel something wonky with that spark plug. So that's kind of my diagnostic thought with this. It's just that clean line right there really sold me as far as this thing not sparking in the cylinder. And the fact that this coil just had a tremendous amount of energy left over. to kind of produce all of this jazz too. So I went on and called the spark plug. Now this cylinder was easy to get to. If I would have been wrong, obviously it wouldn't have taken much time to fix a bad diagnosis or switch a coil around, because everything was right in the front. If this thing would have been under the intake, first off, if I could have gotten to it to do this sort of testing, I probably still would have called the plug, but I would have moved the coil to an easier spot to get to, just in case I was off on my diagnosis, because I wouldn't want to pull the intake twice. But a lot of times, unfortunately, you can't get secondary stuff to a coil that's under an intake. So you kind of got to use scan data a lot more and try to determine whether it's fuel or ignition before you start ripping the intake off. But that's my thoughts on this particular deal here. I've got another little video that I'm going to edit in, and then, of course, I've got a known good that we'll take a quick peek at. So we're back on the screen. I changed out the spark plug. We don't have any missing. 40,000 on an iridium plug. Don't see any obvious damage. But we have no DTCs. Fuel staying nice and green. The misfire monitor has cleared. And there again, no DTCs. This was just a bad spark plug. Alright, so this is the known good. This is after I put the spark plug in. And you can see that the screen time on this one is 1 second per division. So basically there's 10 seconds on this screen. Whereas the screen before, I think it misfired 2 or 3 times within 2 seconds. This is 10 seconds, and it didn't misfire. So we'll just cut in here. We got the really long burn time again with the new plug, 3.5. Like I said, this is just idling. Got some ring left over. We'll just look at another one in here, and you can kind of see everything looks kind of normal and no missing. And I drove it and rechecked the misfire counters and everything, and it was all good. But I thought this was a neat capture. So this is known good, no problems, car's gone. This capture here was pretty neat, I thought. So what I did was, on the same screen, this side is like number 4, it's right beside it with no problems, and then I moved the wand literally over to number 6 where I have all the problems. And you see the hash? This is what I was talking about. And this cylinder was not misfiring. As far as I know, there was nothing wrong with number 4 cylinder. But I just, there again, when it comes to secondary, I like to look at multiple scenarios. And I actually did do some snap throttle testing and everything. I seen nothing in the snap throttle. In fact, it didn't even feel like it was missing during snap. Only at idle did this thing miss. I couldn't get it to misfire under brake torque or anything, just at idle. It makes me wonder if the higher vacuum in the engine was doing something to that spark plug. As it would draw with the higher vacuum being at idle, was doing something with the porcelain or separating the electrode. I don't know. Because I know under snap, vacuum is low, pressures are high. It didn't miss. Under decel, I couldn't find a miss, which would indicate higher vacuum and no fuel. But the capture was so hashy, there may have been something there that I couldn't see. But like I said, this is a number 4 right beside it. You got the hash in the cylinder. You got the the long burn time, and then you see this gap here. This is where I actually moved the wand over to the misfiring cylinder, and right off the bat, there's a low pulse. I mean, just a straight line. Let's see if we can pick on another one real quick. Since you've watched this far, we might as well keep looking. Look at all that energy. I mean, that's crazy. There's the miss. There's the miss. So that was back-to-back misfires. And, I mean, I've said it 10 times, but, I mean, that is just a perfect line. And after seeing this, I only show you guys part of the captures. I've got pages and pages and pages. I just narrow them down because my computer gets so full of files. I just keep like one page of 20. But it's stuff like that that just sold me on this thing has just got a spark plug issue. That's nice and clean. And then, you know, the next time it fires, you know, it's dirty. It looks like it's firing in the cylinder again. So that's why I made the call. It turned out it was the right call. And I thought it was neat. Neat enough to break the GoPro versus the phone. And make you guys a video. And whomever else I may show some of this stuff to. Right there, there's another one. Once again, real clean. And when it misses, it's got a clean burn and a whole lot of energy left to produce that big spike. There's one there with really no misfire, and it's got a hashy burn line. But there again, appreciate you guys watching this long. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm going to try to keep them coming. Have a good one.